Kenya's military is no longer just defending territory. It is shaping the balance of power in East Africa. Quietly, deliberately, and with growing confidence, the Kenya Defense Forces are transforming into the most professional, most operationally experienced, and most strategically relevant armed force in the region. This is not hype. This is the result of years of combat, reform, investment, and hard lessons learned the difficult way. Today we're getting straight into it. No warm-ups, no fluff. Kenya is building a military designed for real threats, not parades. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why Kenya is increasingly viewed as the anchor of security in East Africa and why its military trajectory matters far beyond its borders. Kenya's modern military story is driven by necessity. Geography alone demands strength. Kenya sits at the crossroads of the Horn of Africa, bordered by fragile states, exposed to the Indian Ocean, and positioned along some of the world's most critical trade routes. Add to that decades of terrorism threats, cross-border crime, and regional instability, and the result is clear. Kenya cannot afford a weak or symbolic military. It needs a force that works. For years, the Kenya Defense Forces were largely defensive and inward-looking. The mission was territorial integrity and support to civil authorities. That changed dramatically in 2011 when Kenya launched Operation Linda Nchi and sent troops into Somalia. That decision marked a turning point. Kenya transitioned from a homeland-focused military to an expeditionary, combat-tested force operating beyond its borders for extended periods. That deployment reshaped the KDF at every level. Logistics had to improve, intelligence had to become faster and more integrated, air and ground coordination had to evolve. Command structures had to handle real combat pressure, casualties, and political scrutiny. You cannot fake those lessons. You either adapt or fail. Kenya adapted. Over more than a decade of operations against al-Shabaab, Kenyan forces learned counterinsurgency the hard way, patrols in hostile terrain, base defense under constant threat, complex urban operations, intelligence-driven raids, coordination with allies. This experience placed Kenya in a different category from many regional militaries that have not faced sustained, real-world combat. Combat experience matters because it changes how a military thinks. Kenya no longer plans for hypothetical threats. It plans for enemies that have already attacked Nairobi, Mombasa, and Kenyan civilians. That reality has driven a shift toward mobility, intelligence dominance, and rapid response rather than slow, heavy formations. This shift is visible in how Kenya spends its defense budget. Over recent years, Kenya has steadily increased defense funding, even during periods of economic pressure. That tells you something. Governments cut defense spending when they see it as optional. Kenya sees it as essential. But what matters is not just spending more, it is spending smarter. Kenya's modernization approach is pragmatic. Instead of chasing flashy platforms meant for global powers, the KDF invests in systems that fit African battlefields, armored mobility instead of heavy tanks, surveillance instead of prestige aircraft, patrol vessels instead of symbolic warships. The Kenyan army today is built around mobility and endurance, vehicles capable of operating in rough terrain, units designed for long deployments far from supply hubs, logistics systems that keep troops fed, fueled, and supported in remote areas. This may not look glamorous, but it wins wars in East Africa. At the small unit level, training has improved dramatically. Kenyan non-commissioned officers and junior officers now operate with greater autonomy and professionalism than a decade ago. That is critical. In counterinsurgency, the sergeant often matters more than the general. Kenya understands this. The Kenya Air Force has also evolved into a force multiplier rather than a standalone prestige arm. Its focus is transport, surveillance, reconnaissance, and close air support. These capabilities allow Kenyan ground forces to move quickly, gather intelligence, and strike precisely. Airlift enables rapid reinforcement. Surveillance enables early warning. precision reduces collateral damage and political risk. Rather than overspending on advanced fighter jets that would strain maintenance budgets, Kenya has focused on sustainable air power. Platforms that can fly often, stay airborne long hours, and integrate with ground operations. This approach maximizes effect per dollar spent, which is exactly what a rising regional power should do. Then there is the Navy. For a long time, Kenya's maritime domain was underappreciated. That is changing fast. Kenya has a long coastline, a growing blue economy, offshore resources, and shipping lanes that connect East Africa to the world. Maritime insecurity threatens trade, fisheries, energy exploration, and coastal communities. The Kenya Navy is undergoing a quiet transformation. Its focus is no longer ceremonial patrols, but persistent maritime presence. Patrol vessels, surveillance, special boat units, and joint operations with Coast Guard and international partners. The goal is control, not symbolism. This matters enormously. A capable navy protects Kenya's exclusive economic zone, deters illegal fishing, disrupts smuggling networks, and enhances national sovereignty. It also gives Kenya leverage in regional maritime security discussions, where influence increasingly follows capability. Kenya's naval exercises and sea phase operations over recent years show a force that is serious about professionalism. Training with partners improves seamanship, interoperability, and command and control. It also signals intent. Kenya intends to be a serious maritime actor in the Western Indian Ocean. Behind the scenes, intelligence has become one of Kenya's strongest assets. The integration of military intelligence, national intelligence services, police units, and regional partners has created a more responsive and layered security architecture. Intelligence fusion centers, surveillance assets, and human intelligence networks all feed into operational decision-making. This intelligence-driven approach has allowed Kenya to disrupt plots, target leadership, and respond faster to emerging threats. It does not eliminate terrorism, but it raises the cost for adversaries and reduces their freedom of movement. In modern conflict, information is often more decisive than firepower. Special operations forces play a key role here. Kenya has invested heavily in elite units trained for counterterrorism, reconnaissance, and precision strikes. These forces operate quietly, but their impact is significant. They enable Kenya to conduct targeted operations that reduce risk to civilians and conventional troops. Kenya's approach to partnerships further amplifies its power. Instead of relying on a single foreign patron, Kenya has diversified its military relationships. Training exchanges, joint exercises, and procurement partnerships span multiple countries and regions. This reduces dependency and increases strategic flexibility. Diversification also improves resilience. If one supply chain falters or one partner shifts priorities, Kenya is not left exposed. This is a mature approach to defense diplomacy, and one that reflects long-term strategic thinking. Regionally, Kenya's military strength has ripple effects. When Kenya secures its borders, neighboring states benefit. When Kenya patrols its waters, smuggling networks are disrupted across the region. When Kenya contributes forces to regional operations, it shapes the security environment for East Africa as a whole. This is why Kenya is increasingly viewed as a security provider rather than a security consumer. In a region often defined by instability, Kenya offers competence and continuity. That reputation matters. It attracts partnerships, investment, and diplomatic influence. Now, let's address the word everyone wants to hear: superpower. Kenya is not a global superpower. It does not have aircraft carriers or nuclear weapons. But that is not the relevant comparison. Power is contextual. In East Africa, power means the ability to deploy, sustain, and succeed in real operations. It means shaping outcomes beyond your borders. It means being the country others rely on when crises erupt. By that definition, Kenya is emerging as a regional superpower. Its military is more experienced than most of its neighbors, more professional, better integrated, better funded, better trained, and critically, more trusted by international partners. This does not mean Kenya is unbeatable or without challenges. Modernization brings risks, maintenance costs rise, procurement transparency becomes essential. Civil-military balance must be preserved. A strong military must remain firmly under civilian control to sustain democratic legitimacy. There is also the reality that insurgent groups adapt. Al-Shabaab and other networks will evolve tactics, exploit vulnerabilities, and seek new fronts. Kenya's military must continue to innovate, invest in intelligence, and coordinate across agencies to stay ahead. But the trajectory is clear. Kenya is not standing still. It is building a force designed for tomorrow's conflicts, not yesterday's wars. For Kenyans, this should inspire pride, but also responsibility. A capable military protects lives, trade, and sovereignty. It enables economic growth and national confidence. But citizens must demand accountability, transparency, and professionalism. The strongest militaries serve strong societies, not the other way around. For the region, Kenya's rise offers stability. A strong Kenya reduces space for extremist groups, criminal networks, and maritime insecurity. It provides a pillar around which regional security cooperation can grow. And for the world, Kenya represents a model of pragmatic military development. Not excess, not spectacle, but steady, experience-driven capability building aligned with national needs. So when you hear the phrase Kenya military, the rising superpower of East Africa, understand what it really means. It means a country that learned from war, a force that adapted under pressure, a military that chose effectiveness over ego, and a nation positioning itself as a cornerstone of regional security. This story is still being written. Budgets will rise and fall. Threats will evolve. Leaders will change. But the foundation Kenya has built is real. And if the current trajectory continues, the Kenya Defense Forces will remain the most influential military force in East Africa for years to come. If you value deep, serious military analysis focused on Africa, this is the channel for you. Subscribe, stay sharp, and stay informed.